Sup, welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. Breaking news! We are almost at 3,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for support of the channel, for real. I had no idea that this channel would be anything other than like an experiment, a project. Without your support, this channel would not be anywhere near as fun to do, or as fun as it is just to read the horror stories and hang out and do stuff together like this, because I honestly would not have the courage to be able to do this, for real. So thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. But before I gush more about this, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. This one guy. A light one, but one that never ceases to get on my nerves. For the first session, I knew that he had this one flaw that over the course of 2 years had consistently prodded at my patience every time it happened. It started on the first session. Everyone's classes are irrelevant except for this one person, a Tempest Cleric. We encountered a whirlpool that looked decently dangerous. However, this one guy, I guess I'll call him Paladin, just goes not words for word, but for the gist of it. Well, we have a Tempest Cleric. He can cast, create, and destroy water to get rid of it. Context: Paladin knows no one's classes in-game. He just says his class and assumes that he has this one spell prepared. He did not, but the DM allowed him to switch another spell for it, and we moved on. It was small, but enough to see that Paladin had problems with assuming things of others. I mentioned it before, but why is it Paladins? Actually, you know, it's not even Paladins, dude. Paladin is a really cool class, and I want to play Paladin at some point. I want to make a Tiefling Paladin. How cool would that be? A Tiefling Paladin. It feels like the two combinations of, like, heavenly and hellish, they combine together in this beautiful matrimony. I want to try it so badly. Plus, I never played Paladin. I want to be able to smite things out of thin air. It would be super fun. Not like a Hexadin or anything, just straight up raw Paladin. But anyway, I'll get back to the story about this specific Paladin. I was so right. The rest of the campaign was hints and sprinkles of him assuming things of others people and trying to insert his ideas into other people's characters and even the DM's plot. It got worse when I joined his campaign. The moment I joined, him and his friends almost made my own character for me. I'm glad I took the reins of that quickly. Wait, they made your character for you? You didn't get to make your character? What the hell? If they're new and you're doing a one-shot just to get them used to it, it's fine to have some pre-mades generated ahead of time. But if you're going to be running a general campaign and somebody is experienced in-game and you're allowed to make characters, if everybody else can make characters, you let the one person make the character as well. Don't just make the character for them. It's fine to recommend them different things. Like if they're making a paladin, it's like, oh, you'd be really good with this spell. Or do you want to go for this build? You can grab that spell too. Or you can put points into this stat, but instead you can take that stat out and put it to this stat to get this advantage. You know, I don't know, man. It's fine to offer guidance, but not when you just build a character for somebody else. Let them make the decision. Sometimes I have to remind him that he does not have full reins of other people's ideas. When he started his second campaign, he admitted he was planning to make me and two other players mind-controlled servants. On the day of the session, he hadn't explained any of this beforehand. I said F no to that, but the other two accepted as Paladin was struggling to start his session with his idea down the drain. But this had been the most egregious example of this one thing. He almost enslaved my character without my knowledge or opinion. This isn't even the end of it. Between this and him constantly telling others what race or spell or feat is optimal, even if it doesn't work, had me at my wit's end. I will tell he needs to stop assuming things and inserting his own ideas in other people's ideas. Their ideas may not be what you envision, but it is theirs to manifest, not his. And if he has to, for the sake of his own game, at least communicate with them before running into session 1, thinking of throwing 3 characters into enslavement. Yeah, always have a session 0 for this sort of thing, especially if you're trying to get a concept across to some people. Look, there's nothing wrong with offering ridiculous and zany and zesty concepts. Do whatever you want, but check with your players ahead of time during session 0. Not just spring up on them immediately on first session. Suddenly everybody makes a character. Hey guys, good news! You my slaves and servants. Yeah, I'm just gonna peace out. See ya. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. Progression is for chumps, and so is control of your own character, I guess. I'm sorry for how long this will be. TLDR at the bottom. So this was a few years ago now and happened while we were all around college age. I'm now almost 26. I don't remember the details all that well. However, I recently decided I should share. The DM and main prop in the story I no longer talk with at all for unrelated reasons is a massive transphobe and has since realized I'm trans. So me and a few others were invited by DM to play a game of Black Crusade. For those of you unfamiliar with Black Crusade, is a system in Warhammer 40k universe wherein you play Chaos Cultists on a quest for infamy and ascension to demon priesthood, so essentially dedicated for evil campaigns. The cast is as follows. Me, playing a Slaaneshi worshipping Psyker, charismatic and silver-tongued, but erratic and not a leader. I kind of loved his over-the-top design. He was a Psyker melee who used an electric whip sort of weapon, perfect edgy Slaanesh worshipper, and I'm still proud of how I did playing him. Soldier, close friend of mine I've known for a long time. He was playing a silent but deadly type with ruthless efficiency and very good shooting skills. Mech, DM's younger brother and at this point a good friend of mine, playing a dark Mechanicum tech priest. A bit of a wild card, but ultimately not bad. Crackshot, Soldier's friend from college who played a very murder hobo and wild card character who would always go for the most chaotic possibilities, essentially always choose violence. He's a good guy and his character fit fine in the setting, so he's actually not the problem at all. Wolf, another Soldier's friends from college and Crackshot's older brother. A good guy and initially the only one who was playing a Space Marine character. The rest of us were human, more or less, and thus initially the de facto party leader. DM, the only real problem in the story. A friend I had for a while and was once much closer with, but we also had growing tensions due to unrelated things outside of game. As mentioned, no longer have any contact. The initial setup of the campaign was actually pretty good. We started off on Inquisition prison ship, where we held prisoners in transport for presumably brutal interrogation and execution for our various heretical past. When a prison break was staged by a traitor on the crew, the first arc was essentially a series of fighting our way through the ship to take it over and escape before the rest of the Inquisition ships caught on to what was happening and blew up our ship to prevent our escape. It was tons of fun. Our party had a really fun dynamic. Soldier and Crackshot quickly became hostile towards my wildcard Psyker due to the negative effects Psyker powers can cause, and he was affectionately nicknamed Twitch, which I still love to this day. The only real problem is, not long into the campaign, Wolf sadly had to leave due to IRL conflicts making it too hard for him to play. This left a power vacuum, and Soldier begrudgingly ended up becoming the leader of the party as he was the most level-headed and capable, even though the player really didn't want him to be a leader character, and the DM's railroading did not make it any easier for him. However, we did start to see some things that would become persistent issues throughout the campaign's runtime. Firstly, progression was excruciating slow. The DM gave us XP only when we completed objectives, and I believe his genuine thought is this is how the game is supposed to run. So we gained XP once every several sessions, and when we did get some, it was painfully small amount. I mean, the DM could just always give you XP or just choose a milestone system. I think milestones are a little bit more balanced. The DM kind of can choose willy-nilly when people get XP. Maybe the XP is built around it, I don't know actually. Secondly, there were some rules that didn't really make sense and combat could be painfully slow at times. I can't really remember anymore what specific rules there were, but basically we all assumed the DM knew what he was doing. A mistake I've since learned not to repeat. And so we only helped look up rules under some circumstances when it was stuff directly pertinent to our character abilities. Third, we quickly saw a pattern of the DM often having schedule issues or just not feeling up to running the game that night. We wouldn't know until sometimes just an hour or two before we were supposed to play. We also would never play if anyone was missing, and we never tried to reschedule. The DM just said, "Oh well, guess no session, see you guys next week." Scheduling is already a problem when it comes to setting up games, but as a DM, you need to try to communicate that stuff as much as you can ahead of time. Don't just spring up on it and be like, "Oh, I guess we're not running a session, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye. Goodbye. See ya. See ya." No communication. No, I ain't gonna talk about it. No, you just have to deal with it. Bye. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution, especially if you're running the actual damn game. Try to, I don't know, man, just try to be responsible about it. You have people that are literally making their free time to try to attend your game. The least you could do is be courteous and kind to them. These will become persistent issues that severely bog down our enjoyment of the game. However, we wouldn't learn until after the campaign died the full extent of the problem here. So the game continues. We commandeer the ship and manage to escape the Imperial flotilla, and the main part of the campaign begins with us in control of our very own ship with a crew of escaped Chaos Cultists to boss around as our lackeys. Only notice how I put "in control" in quotes. Yeah, we weren't really in control. This is the first major example that popped up on another issue. Black Crusade has a key statistic for player characters and NPCs called infamy. Essentially, infamy decides the level of influence and reputation your character has. It is key in obtaining resources, as the game does not even have mechanics for currency. You're supposed to just make infamy checks to obtain what you need. Another mechanic the DM completely freaking ignored. Demanding the respect of those less powerful than you, etc. You start with a certain amount of depending on class and other factors, and the main goal of the game is to gain enough infamy to ascend into a demon prince. With our combined infamy levels, according to the rules, we should have easily been able to command the absolute respect of our crew. Hell, we should have been able to command a flotilla if we wanted to, but the DM entirely ignored the respect our infamy should have commanded. This was the first, but far from the last instance of this. So a persistent pain in our ass was dissent among the crew, and even the rival cult that was never really explained. They weren't exactly chaos worshippers, but weren't also imperial? We were forced to deal with it in a very painstaking fashion, and a general pattern of people not knowing or just not caring who we are. Anyway, the campaign continued. We all noticed it's a bit railroady for the next arc, which involved us going down to a planet on behalf of a local crime lord to investigate issues with the supply chain disruption. And we find out that there's a gene stealer cult. Basically, people infected with alien parasites that act to weaken the stabilized planets from the inside in preparation for the main Tyranid invasion force to arrive. The gene stealers reveal themselves as Tyranids show up to invade and consume the planet. We're basically powerless to actually stop them, and we were only barely escaped due to a deus ex machina. I don't remember at this point how others reacted, but I was left wondering what exactly the point of all that was. If your player's actions don't even matter in the grand scheme of things, and there was no point for it in the first place, it was just meant like as a cutscene to watch the Tyranids arrive, then play it out as a cutscene. Don't force your players to go into the planet just to be like, oh, Tyranids are here, I guess we're out for the deus ex machina. Either have the player actions matter, or just play out a cutscene and let them watch, and then get back to the part where their agency actually matters at that point. Because if it doesn't, then it doesn't. What's the point for it all, right? What's the point of doing the effort if at the end of the day it's not gonna matter in the first place, right? At some point around this, we switched gears to introduce a second set of characters, and this time it was explicitly intended for all of us to play Space Marine characters. I decided to make a Nurgle devoted absolute tank of a man. Soldier played essentially a cleric of chaos, was very charismatic and the most neutral of the party. Crackshot played a Khorne Berserker, and Meg played a Tzeentch Librarian, another Psyker type. We were on a planet delving into what we discovered was a Necron tomb when we had our first character death, and boy howdy, there were stupid deaths. Crackshot's Berserker severely failed a check to get across a vat of acid and fell in while we were being attacked by Necron scarabs, and he died. No real chance to get out of the acid or anything. Nothing we could do to save him. As you can imagine, Crackshot was very pissed that his absolute badass monster of melee combat died in such a stupid, anticlimactic way due to one failed check. Later on, it was my turn to die. Anyone who's familiar with 40k lore knows that Nurgle and Tzeentch hate each other. Nurgle is the god of, among other things, stagnancy and resilience, and Tzeentch is the god of change and plotting. It's important to note here that we never had a Session 0, which I recognize now was a big mistake, and so we never discussed to what degree we were okay with PvP and how much we wanted this to be a co-op versus plotting against each other. Black Crusade naturally comes with some backstabbing with individual plotting, but this was extreme. There's an active devotion Tzeentch characters can carry out to earn a good chunk of infamy, and that is, you guessed it, kill a Nurgle devotee. So during a situation where my character was occupied and his attention was elsewhere, Meg's Tzeentch Librarian stabbed him in the back with an incredibly powerful psychic attack that tore through all of his unholy resistance, and he will not die energy from him being a Nurgle devotee did an insane amount of damage and instant killed him. I was very disappointed, but I don't really hold it against Meg, as we didn't talk about it beforehand at all, and he's honestly a very nice and understanding dude. I'm sure if I protested at the time, he would have stopped to talk it out. After the rest of the party finished getting through the Necron tomb, Crackshot now rolled up new Space Marines. He rolled up a Night Lord, because of course, who are very edgy even for 40k, and I decided to play an Alpha Legionnaire, a master of stealth and subterfuge. Back to our human characters, here comes the straw that broke the camel's back for my enjoyment of the game. Psykers have potential to cause psychic phenomena, or even worse, perils of the warp. Think of it sort of like a wild magic sorcerer in D&D 5e. I don't even remember the circumstances anymore, but I had him cast a power, end up causing a phenomena, rolled in the psychic phenomena table, rolled really high, which sent me to the much worse perils of the warp table, and rolled very high again. The result was that my dear Twitch was possessed by the greater demon. The GM decided it was fitting for this to be a keeper of secrets, a greater demon of Slaanesh. Now here I thought this could be a great opportunity for some wild crap to happen with this character, and this is what I assumed would happen, as the GM didn't tell me to roll up a new character, but I didn't get to play anymore. GM controlled Twitch for me, as the demon now controlled his body. He didn't let me continue playing, but with specific instructions how to play out his new state. He didn't just tell me to roll a new character. Twitch, inside his mind, tried bargaining with the demon for control. I rolled really well, and you know what GM had the demon say? Twitch amused it and appreciated his ambition. He was allowed to have control of his body for 1 hour a day. 1 hour. Okay, demon possessions aside, if the mechanic doesn't add anything fun to your game, you probably shouldn't be running it. If the character just can't be controlled except for 1 hour a day, that takes away all player agency. Just let them roll a new character and you control the Twitch at that point. Or something, I don't know, man. I get maybe some rules that I don't understand for the game because I never played the game myself, but this doesn't add anything fun to the player. Yeah, getting possessed is cool and all. Maybe you should give them some extra perks and stuff. Or maybe at some point they have to roll a will save or something or whatever in order to try to fight for the control, and sometimes the demon can take over for a little bit to cause some chaotic action or something like that. I don't know. To completely take away play agency and control over this and just let him play for an hour at a time? Why would you do that? Why would you do that to a player? Let him roll a new character then. If you don't want him to play as Twitch. Or let him play as Twitch and make it less punishing. Maybe there's rules with this sort of thing, I don't know, but like at the end of the day, if this doesn't add anything positive to the game, what's the point of having it then, you know? And literally the rest of the time I had no control over my own character, and he didn't even interact anymore unless he was needed for something. It was just hiding away as the demon in control started doing whatever depraved crap a Keeper of Secrets does in Twitch's quarters. I'd not even get to know what he was plotting or doing. It was my character. This was on a couple of sessions before I finally realized DM was not giving me the opportunity to play my character anymore, and I myself told him I wanted to roll up a new character. Because I like the Slaanesh side of things and I didn't want to just abandon that, saying by the way, I rolled up a new Slaanesh worshipper, but a very different temperament and mechanical role. This guy was a Silver Fox, an old pirate captain with great plotting abilities and his own small starship to use, and a duelist in melee combat who prided himself on the perfection of his fighting ability. And within one session, my enjoyment of playing him was ruined by the stupidest thing ever. Once again, his reputation and his skills meant nothing, as the DM had me roll a plotting check for him to dock his ship at a spaceport. I failed the check, and he damaged his own ship in a station, for which he was now in debt to the station owner for the damage. This was the last major incident I can remember, because what happened next is a long streak of DM cancelling on our last minute and us eventually calling it quits. As we decided we'd had enough, we decided to look through the rulebook for a few things, and it finally struck us. DM had not even read or was willfully ignoring major parts of the rulebook. Remember this slow progression? Yeah, we found out there's in fact rules for awarding XP per encounter or per session. We should have been getting way more XP, way more frequently than we had been. It's freaking laughable how little power progression we had. I did the math and we should have gotten the level of XP we had after like 5 sessions. And we probably went for some 20-something sessions at least. Also, those disappointing deaths my Nurgle Marine and Crackshot Corn Berserker had. We also learned those are rules that allowed you to have your character survive otherwise lethal damage, but at the cost of infamy. Essentially trading death for your character losing a reputation for the failure. None of us knew this, including the DM. There were examples of other mechanics that we handwaved that contributed to things like the clunkiness of trying to obtain items and services for painfully slow pace of combat, but I can't remember them anymore. I do realize this isn't just on the DM, no one had read through the rulebook fully and thus didn't know, but the thing is that a lot of the stuff that was not being implemented in-game and actively making things worse, such as the XP thing, were in the DMing chapter of the rulebook, and thus none of us had looked to avoid potential spoilers of things or metagaming. Soldier, Crackshot, and I were all pretty pissed about finding all this out, and combined with the railroad, lack of infamy, and character skills really meaning anything, and my second character's reputation immediately getting thrashed because of an incredibly stupid check being required of him after my first character was commandeered without me officially losing control of him, and completely ruined any interest we had in continuing. However, by this point, we already thrown in towel because of the DM's flakiness. I know he has mental health struggles, if we were a big factor, and it's important to place your mental health before the game, but having last-minute cancellations and never even trying to reschedule or anything was such a drain. Made it so hard to have momentum. Ultimately, I don't think he had the capacity to run the game at all, and he didn't realize this until the rest of us had to tell him we just couldn't do it anymore. The campaign quietly died, and in the years since, I realized I'm trans and thus no longer talk to the DM, and Crackshot and I rarely interact with, as we are mostly in separate circles, but I know Soldier is still friends with him. Soldier is still very good friends of mine, and I still regularly interact with Mech, who by no means shares in the bigoted views of his older brother. Not long after this, my interest in 40k as a whole really died down, but thankfully I'm now into D&D 5e groups. One is a DM, and one is a player, that are going very strong. Some by no means start for good tabletop. Thanks for reading. I know it's not the most exciting story, and it is a long one, but hopefully provides some entertainment. Entertainment? Sure. Pain? Greatly, because if you're gonna be playing a specific game, least you need to do is read about stuff, especially if you have a DM's guide or some sort of a DM's book. If you're gonna be DMing, read the DM things, practice the DM stuff, look up videos, look up tutorials, look up things to like improve in the game. Or, hey, how about you do this? Talk to your players about what sounds fun, what doesn't sound fun, omit some of the rules you think you understand, or maybe even, hey, look up stuff together. Learn about the game together. If you're all coming in brand new to the game, learn it together. Learn it together, both as players and DMs together. I don't know, man. I feel like the game was kind of also doomed from the start because the DM was kind of flaky anyway. But, you know, it is what it is. Now you're off doing your own thing. Everybody else is doing their own thing. And it's fine. It was an experience to remember and an experience to learn from. But now that you know, now I have a new game to look up for sure. Because I'm actually interested. Warhammer 40k sounds dope. And I want to look this one up too. The whole infamy system sounds kind of fun. And the way you can sacrifice infamy to avoid character death. That sounds kind of cool, actually. I like it. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.